Lucas should never have entered that room. But there he was, 17 years old, standing before the antique mahogany chest of drawers that had belonged to his grandmother Beatriz, the woman who had raised him since he was 5, after his parents died in a car accident. The woman who had just passed away 3 days earlier, leaving a void impossible to fill. The funeral had been that morning. Distant relatives left after lunch, leaving only Lucas and his Aunt Marcia in the old house. Marcia was in the kitchen, organizing the lunch boxes that the neighbors had brought. And Lucas needed a moment alone in his grandmother's room. The scent was still there, that mixture of lavender, talcum powder, and something indefinable that was simply her. Lucas sat on the bed, running his hands over the crocheted comforter Beatriz had made decades ago. His eyes burned, but there were no more tears. He had already cried too much in the last few days. That's when he saw it. The bottom drawer of the dresser was slightly open. Just an inch, but enough to reveal that something was preventing it from closing completely. Lucas frowned. That drawer had always been locked. In all the 12 years he had lived there, he had never seen it open. "Don't touch Grandma's things unnecessarily," she used to say when he was a child, always with a gentle smile, but in a tone that didn't allow for questioning. Now she was gone, and that drawer was open. Lucas looked at the bedroom door. Marcia was still busy downstairs. He knelt before the dresser and gently pulled out the drawer. Creaked, resisting slightly, but gave way. Inside, there was nothing he expected to find. No antique jewelry, important documents, or yellowed letters. Instead, there was an old, faded brown cardboard shoebox tied with thick twine. Lucas's heart raced for no apparent reason. Something was wrong. Something his instinct screamed at him to close the drawer and forget what he had seen. But he couldn't. With trembling hands, she untied the knot in the string and opened the box. Photographs. Dozens of them, some in black and white, others in color but faded with time. Lucas picked up the first one. It was his grandmother, much younger, perhaps in her early 20s. She looked beautiful, in a patterned summer dress, smiling radiantly at the camera. Beside her, a tall man with broad shoulders and a charming smile had his arm around her. Lucas turned the photo over. On the back, in Beatriz's delicate handwriting, it was written, "Me and Miguel, summer of 1967. Miguel? Lucas frowned. The name wasn't familiar to him. His grandfather's name was Roberto. He'd seen pictures of him before, and that man was definitely not Roberto. Curious, he picked up another photo. Beatriz and Miguel again, this time on a beach, she wearing a vintage swimsuit, he shirtless, both laughing. Another photo. The two of them in a restaurant, looking at each other with an intensity that made something tighten in Lucas's chest. Yet another. Beatriz pregnant, with a huge belly, Miguel kneeling in front of her, kissing her belly. The world seemed to tilt. Lucas dropped the photo, his brain refusing to process what he saw. Beatriz had never had children. That's what she always said. "I wasn't blessed with children of my own," she used to say. "But God gave me you, my love, and you are more than enough." But there she was, undeniably pregnant, in a photo from decades ago. With hands that were now visibly trembling, Lucas continued rummaging through the box. There were more photos of the baby. A newborn with rosy cheeks, wrapped in a blue blanket. A baby of a few months old, smiling at the camera. A small child, perhaps 2 years old, with blonde curls and big eyes. On the back of one of the baby's photos, it was written, "Padrinho, 3 months old. My heart in the form of a child." Lucas felt nauseous. Who was Padrinho? What had happened to him? Why had his grandmother never mentioned any of this? But what he found next made everything infinitely worse. At the bottom of the box, beneath all the photos, was a yellowed envelope. Lucas opened it with numb fingers. Inside, a birth certificate. Pedro Miguel Santos. Born on March 15, 1968. Mother, Beatriz Santos. Father, Miguel Ferreira. And stapled to the certificate was a newspaper clipping. The ink was faded, but it was still legible. Tragic accident claims the lives of father and son. Miguel Ferreira, 29, and his son Pedro, 2, died yesterday in a car accident on the BR-116 highway. The vehicle collided head-on with a truck that crossed into the oncoming lane. Miguel died at the scene. The boy was taken to the hospital but did not survive his injuries. His wife and mother, Beatriz Santos Ferreira, was not in the car at the time of the accident. Police are investigating the circumstances. The newspaper's date was May 20th, 1970. Lucas couldn't breathe. The room spun around him. His grandmother had lost a husband and a son in a car accident, and never in her entire life had she mentioned a single word about it. But there was more. Below the newspaper clipping, another birth certificate, a more recent one. Lucas grabbed it and the world collapsed. Rafael Lucas Andrade, born on April 10, 2008. Mother, Carla Andrade. Father, Pedro Andrade. Her name, her date of birth. But her parents' names were wrong. Her parents were called Ana and Fernando Costa, not Carla and Pedro Andrade. Or not. Hey, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos, and comment below what you think Lucas will discover next. Your interaction is super important for the channel to grow. Thanks for the support. Now, let's continue with the story that is only beginning to reveal its secrets. Lucas heard footsteps on the stairs. Marcia was coming up. In a panic, he threw everything back into the box, closed the drawer, and ran out of the room, bumping into his aunt in the hallway. "Lucas, are you all right? You look pale," said Marcia, worried. I just need air," he stammered, walking past her and quickly down the stairs. Outside, the cold night air didn't help. Lucas leaned against the garden wall, trying to organize his thoughts. Nothing made sense. Absolutely nothing. His grandmother had lost a son named Pedrinho. But on Lucas's birth certificate, his father's name was Pedro Andrade. Pedrinho. Could it be a coincidence? No, couldn't. Lucas pulled his cell phone from his pocket with trembling hands and typed in the name that was on the birth certificate. Carla Andrade. He added the approximate year she should have been born, if she were the age he imagined. And he found something. An obituary from 2013. Carla Andrade, deceased at age 32. She leaves behind her husband, Pedro Andrade, and her 5-year-old son, Rafael Lucas. Pedro Andrade, his alleged father. Lucas searched for his name. Another obituary, this one also from 2013, a few months later. Pedro Andrade, who died at age 34 in a traffic accident. Just like her parents Ana and Fernando Costa. Just like Beatriz's first husband and son, Miguel and Pedrinho. The coincidence was impossible. Terrifying. Lucas needed answers. He went back inside the house, ignoring Marcia's call, and went straight up to the attic. He knew his grandmother kept old boxes there. Documents. Papers. The attic was dusty and dark. Lucas turned on his cell phone light and began rummaging through the boxes. Old clothes, books, more photographs. And then, at the bottom of a box labeled Important Documents, he found it. A blue folder. Inside, adoption documents. Adoption process of Rafael Lucas Andrade, 5 years old. Adoptive parent, Beatriz Santos Ferreira. Date, August 2013. Lucas sat on the cold attic floor, the briefcase trembling in his hands. He had been adopted. Beatriz wasn't his biological grandmother. But then, why had she always said he was the son of Ana and Fernando, her children? Why had she invented that whole story? He continued reading. There were social reports, psychological evaluations, and a letter, a handwritten letter from Beatriz, addressed to the judge in the case. Your Excellency, I am writing to request the adoption of Rafael Lucas, son of my grandson Pedro Andrade. Pedro was my only living descendant after the tragedy that took my first son as a baby and my husband. I raised Pedro as best I could, a single mother in the 70s, facing all the judgment of society. I remarried to Roberto, a good man who helped me move on, but I was never able to give Pedro the complete family he deserved. When Pedro brought me my great-grandson Rafael, my heart filled with joy. I thought that finally our family would begin to heal. But fate is cruel. Pedro and Carla died in the same type of accident that took Miguel and my firstborn Pedro from me. It's as if a curse haunts the men in my family. Rafael was orphaned at age 5. I was already 68. I know I'm too old to be a mother again, but he has no one else. I decided he would call me Grandma, and that I would tell him his parents were Ana and Fernando, my imaginary children who died in an accident. I didn't want him to grow up carrying the weight of being a great-grandchild. I didn't want him to know about the curse that seems to haunt our family. I wanted him to have a normal, carefree childhood, without the trauma of knowing the whole truth. Forgive me for lying, but it was the only way I could protect you. I promise to love you as I have always loved everyone life has entrusted to me, even though they have all been taken from me. Tears streamed freely down Lucas's face now. Everything made sense. His grandmother's overprotectiveness. The way she always got tense when he wanted to learn to drive. How she insisted he always wear a helmet when riding his bike, even as a teenager. How she prayed every night, asking for his protection. She wasn't just being a worried grandmother. She was terrified of losing someone else. Lucas pressed the letter against his chest, sobbing. His whole life had been a well-intentioned lie. Ana and Fernando never existed. He was Beatriz's great-grandson, Pedro's son, who was the son of the Pedro who died as a baby. No, wait. Lucas reread the letter. My first son, still a baby. But Pedrinho was 2 years old when he died, according to the newspaper. And Beatriz had written, I raised Pedro as best I could, a single mother in the 70s. Pedro had survived. Lucas ran back to his grandmother's room, grabbed the shoebox, and frantically searched. There had to be something else. And he found it, hidden in a side pocket of the box that he hadn't noticed before. Another newspaper clipping, this one more recent than the first. Error in 1970 news report. Child survived accident. The newspaper publishes this correction regarding the article of May 20, 1970, about the accident that killed Miguel Ferreira. Contrary to what was reported, the child Pedro Miguel Ferreira survived his injuries after emergency surgery. The incorrect information was published due to a communication error from the hospital. The newspaper apologizes for the mistake and for any additional pain it may have caused the family. The correction date was May 30, 1970. 10 days later, Beatriz had lost her husband. For 10 days, she had believed she had also lost her son. And when she discovered he was alive, she decided to protect him from everything. She moved to a new city, started over, and raised Pedro far from any memory of the accident. And when Pedro grew up, got married, had Lucas, and died in the same type of accident that had killed Miguel, Beatriz decided to do the same with Lucas. Erase the past. Create a simpler story. Protect him. Lucas understood everything now. The locked drawer wasn't just a place to keep painful memories. It was where Beatriz locked away the truth she thought could destroy him. Lucas spent the night in his grandmother's room, reading each document, looking at each photo, getting to know his grandfather Miguel, whom he never knew existed, getting to know his father Pedro, who was actually his grandfather, understanding Beatriz's pain, who had lost so many and yet still found the strength to love and raise yet another. When the sun rose, Marcia found Lucas sleeping on the floor, surrounded by photos and papers. Lucas? What is all this about? She asked, worried. Lucas looked at his aunt. No, at Beatriz's cousin. He wasn't exactly sure what their relationship was now. Marcia, did you know about all of this? Marcia knelt beside him, picking up one of the photos of Beatriz and Miguel. I knew some things, she said softly. Bea told me a little bit over the last few months. When she found out she was sick, she was worried you'd find out after she died. But she also believed you deserved to know the truth when you were ready. She should have told me, Lucas said, his voice breaking. She wanted to, but she was afraid. Afraid you would hate her for lying. Afraid you would feel cursed like she felt. Bea lost all the men she loved in car accidents, Lucas. All of them. Can you imagine the terror she felt every time you left the house? Lucas couldn't speak. He just shook his head. She loved you more than anything, Marcia continued. More than life itself. And every day you spent together, every smile of yours, every achievement, was a victory for her against fear. She was determined to break the cycle, to make you grow strong, secure, loved. And she succeeded. Lucas, look at you. You are an incredible, kind, intelligent young man. That is her legacy. Lucas picked up a photo of Beatriz holding him as a baby. He must have been 5 years old in the photo shortly after the adoption. She was smiling, but there were tears in her eyes. Tears of joy and fear mixed together. She was so afraid of losing me, Lucas whispered. And even so, she let you live, said Marcia. She never held you back, never overprotected you to the point of suffocating you. Despite the terror, she let you be a child, be a teenager, make mistakes, learn. That, Lucas, is true love. Lucas hugged Marcia and cried. He cried for his grandmother, whom he had lost, for his great-grandfather Miguel, whom he had never met, for his grandfather Pedro, whom he had also never met, for Beatriz's sadness, which he finally understood. But she also cried tears of gratitude, because, even with so much fear, so much trauma, so much loss, Beatriz had chosen love. She had chosen to embrace it, nurture it, protect it in the best way she knew how. In the following days, Lucas organized all the photos and documents. He created an album with the true story of his family. Miguel and Beatriz, young and in love. The birth of Pedro. The tragedy. The survival. Pedro growing up. Pedro as an adult, married to Carla. The birth of Lucas. The second tragedy. And Beatriz, once again, rising from the ashes to save what remained of her family. He placed the album on the living room shelf. No longer hidden in a locked drawer, but displayed, honored. The truth was no longer something to fear, but something to embrace. Lucas decided to keep the surname Costa, the false name Beatriz had invented. Not because he wanted to continue the lie, but because it was the name he had grown up with, the name that carried Beatriz's intention to protect him. But now he knew his whole story, and that made all the difference. A few weeks later, Lucas was organizing Beatriz's belongings when he found one last hidden envelope. It was addressed to him, in his grandmother's trembling handwriting from her final days. My dear Lucas, if you're reading this, it means you've found the drawer. Part of me hoped you'd never open it. Part of me knew you would. And part of me wanted you to. Forgive me for all the lies. They weren't lies of malice, but of desperation. When I first saw you, orphaned at 5, I saw everyone I'd lost. I saw Miguel in your eyes. I saw my little Pedro in your smile. I saw my Pedro in every gesture of yours. I was so afraid of losing you too. So afraid that I almost suffocated you with my protectiveness. But then I realized, if I had prevented you from living out of fear of death, I would have lost you anyway. So I let you be free, play soccer, ride your bike, make friends, live. And every day you came home safely was a day I thanked God. There is no curse, Lucas. There never was. Only the cruel chance of life. But there is also love. So much love. And that love is stronger than any imaginary curse. You broke the cycle just by existing, by growing, by being happy. You are my redemption, my love. Proof that love always wins. Live life, Lucas. Live life to the fullest. Without fear. Drive your car. Travel the world. Love. Get married. Have children if you want. Do everything you dream of. And know that wherever I am, I will be rooting for you. Always. You were the greatest gift of my life. My last and most precious love. Forever yours, Grandma B. Lucas carefully folded the letter and placed it next to the album. Then, for the first time since finding the locked drawer, he smiled. A genuine smile. A smile of peace. He understood. He understood everything. The drawer wasn't locked to keep him away from the truth. It was locked to keep the pain away from him. But now, with the truth revealed, he could honor not only the lives lost, but also the life lived. The life Beatriz had given him. That night, Lucas left home. He took the bus to the cemetery. In front of Beatriz's recently closed grave, he knelt down. "I know everything now, Grandma," she said softly. "About Miguel. About Pedrinho. About Pedro and Carla. About everything. And I understand. I understand why you did what you did. And I forgive you. More than that, I thank you." The wind blew gently, rustling the leaves of the trees. "I'm going to live, Grandma. I'm going to live without fear. I'm going to honor them all by living. I'm going to drive, travel, love. I'm going to do everything you always wanted me to do, but were afraid to encourage me to do. And I'm going to do it knowing that you're proud. That they all are." Lucas stayed there for hours, talking with Beatriz, with Miguel, with the Pedros, with Carla, telling them about his plans, his dreams, his fears. And somehow he felt that they were listening. When he finally stood up to leave, Lucas felt lighter. The truth, however painful, had set him free. No longer a child protected by well-intentioned lies, but a man who knew his history and chose to honor it by living it to the fullest. Grandma's locked drawer hid secrets that weren't meant to be seen. But now that they had been seen, Lucas understood. Some secrets are kept not to hide them forever, but to protect them until we are ready to bear their weight. And Lucas was ready. Ready to live. Ready to love. Ready to honor those who came before him, not fearing them, but celebrating them. The curse, if it ever existed, was broken. Not by magic or fate, but by love. The love of a woman who lost everything and yet found the strength to save one last life. Love that persists beyond death, beyond pain, beyond fear. And this love, Lucas now knew, would live forever. In him.